Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. If you can solve this puzzle, you are at least a 1000 plus rated player. We are continuing in our series. This is puzzle number 11. It is white to play. See if you can find the correct continuation for white. Pause the video now. As always, I want these puzzle videos to be educational and instructive. Otherwise, you could solve 901 puzzles on your own. So, since we've now had our tactics recognition lessons part 1 and 2, where we've learned about the 6 conditions that need to be met to trigger that alarm in our head to start looking at the position and treat it like a puzzle, every puzzle from this point on will fall into at least one of those 6 categories. So, this one is condition number 2, unprotected pieces, but this one also features a very cool and very special checkmating pattern that you might not be aware of, and that is called the dovetail checkmate. Okay, so your typical dovetail checkmate usually involves your opponent's king right smack dab in the center of a little mini 3x3 square block, usually kind of out in the middle of the board. So it usually happens in the back half of the middle game or perhaps the early stages of the end game where there are a decent chunk of pieces that have already been traded off the board. So 99% of the time, the dovetail checkmate is delivered by your queen, and it's going to occur on one of these 4 corner red squares. So let's say in this case that the checkmate occurs on the D6 corner square. Perhaps the queen comes from A6 and delivers checkmate on D6. The 2 opposite non-corner squares, which in this case would be E4 and F5, are typically occupied by your opponent's pieces. So maybe there is a black bishop on E4, maybe there's a black knight on F5, and that is blocking the king's escape. So you can kind of think about this as a type of smothered checkmate. Okay, so let's take a look at several different examples. Okay, in this first example, here's the king in the middle of this 3x3 square block, and checkmate is going to occur here on D4. So queen to D4, protected by the knight. And you'll notice that in this corner square, the 2 opposite non-corner squares, in this case E6 and F5, are occupied by black's own pieces. So the queen has the diagonal covered, she has the horizontal covered, and she has the vertical covered. Checkmate on D4. Okay, in this example, the king is in the middle of our 3x3 tic-tac-toe board, and so we have queen to E6, the diagonal covered, the vertical covered, and the horizontal covered. The 2 opposite non-corner squares on C7 and D8 are occupied by black's own pieces, so that's another mate. And finally, just for aesthetically pleasing purposes and to showcase the beauty of mathematics and geometry on the chessboard, we have the ultra rare dovetail checkmate where your opponent's king is not blockaded by any of its own pieces. So the king is in the middle of our 3x3 square. And here we have checkmate here on D4. The queen has the diagonal covered, the horizontal covered, and the vertical covered, but the 2 opposite non-corner squares are not occupied by anything except for our beautiful bishop, and that is a gorgeous checkmate right in the center of the board. Very, very rare. Okay, so why is it called the dovetail checkmate? Well, hopefully that doesn't need too much explanation, but the 3 paths that the queen has the black king cornered in could be described as the feathers on the tail of a dove that kind of fan out like a Chinese fan. So here's a picture of a dovetail. Also, it kind of reminds you guys know I'm a huge Star Wars fan, so it kind of reminds me of that scene in The Force Awakens when Starkiller Base destroys multiple planets at the same time. I wonder why that reminds me of the dovetail. All right, here we go. Back to the original puzzle position. Okay, so now that we know what the dovetail checkmate is, I will give you guys another shot at it. If you didn't get the puzzle the first time, pause the video now. Okay, for the solution, we can use tactics recognition condition number 2, unprotected pieces. We notice that according to our new definition, the rook on C8 is undefended. This is a 1 versus 1. Do we have any tactics on the rook? Yes, we do. And the move is boom, knight takes F7, brilliancy. If the rook takes, well, there we go. Nice little deflection. We can pick up the rook on C8 and we win the exchange. Or if black takes with the king, then here we go. King is right in the middle of our 3x3 tic-tac-toe board. And we have the beautiful queen to E6. And that is a nice way to end the game with a beautiful dovetail checkmate. Hey, thanks for watching. If you think these videos are helpful and you would like me to continue posting them, please consider liking and subscribing. Thanks so much, guys, and we'll see you on the next one.